So my name is Corey Freed. I am the educational consultant for visual sound, and I have been doing this for actually, I think today is my 1 year anniversary with visual sound, or at least this week is. I know I started in the end of June. So we're going to talk about Smart Learning Suite Online, and we're going to look specifically at the tools that can help the ELA and the social studies classroom within the Smart Learning Suite Online system. All right, so, I went over the agenda before I hit the agenda slide, of course. So Pat already knows my class code, but if you want to join as a student, so you can see the student perspective, my class code is 120636, and you are able to join as a student, and you would basically be following along with this presentation that I'm showing right now. Now, have you used Smart Learning Suite Online, Ishmael?
I myself have not, but several of our teachers have.
Okay. So a quick overview of Smart Learning Suite Online is if you go into the edit functions, you can, they're growing what you can do with it. So you can now insert text, insert pictures. You can come over here to the plus sign on the bottom, and this is where you can insert your games and your activities. And that's what really sets Smart Learning Suite apart from PowerPoint and Google Slides and all of those stagnant presenting tools. And that is that interactive feature that is only available in Smart Learning Suite Online. So those are the things we're going to talk about today. And if you look at our presentation, just to show you, I'm going to go to my other tab for a second. We actually made this in Google Slides. So the reason why we make it in Google Slides and then import it to Smart Learning Suite Online is because it lets you have a little more of that graphic design to it. So when you're in Smart Learning Suite Online, it's pretty much just a solid text inputting images, but you can't really get that good design to it.
Corey,
and then yes.
I have a question about the YouTube functionality. So I can hold that up if you're going to get to that later.
We're going to get to YouTube right here. So I could just skip. Let me explain to Ishmael, because then I'm going to go back to the slides. So if you notice when I created this in slides, I made a placeholder. And here I wrote 9/11 video, YouTube video. So this way, when we go back to our actual presentation and I go to slide number 9, you'll see that slide number 9 on my previews is just the YouTube icon. But here's my actual slide that the students would see. There's the video with a play button. Now ask your question, Pat.
Okay, so I was testing it out with an existing slideshow I had. It was a Google slideshow, Common Sense Media, digital citizenship, and it had an embedded video in it. So when I opened that up in Smart Learning Suite, I could not
get the embedded video to work.
The play function did not work for the student screen. But when I found that same video on YouTube and put it in using Smart Learning Suite, then the student had the independent ability to play it.
Yeah. So if you notice when I was in my Google Slides, that's why we just do a placeholder, because the videos themselves don't convert.
Okay, well, that was good to know.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that is really nice, and I'll go into the edit for a second to show you this. When you click add a YouTube channel, you see how it says search the video? Let's say I'm just going to find a random YouTube video really quick, hopefully. So let's just hope that nothing inappropriate comes up. We're just going to click on this first video, amazing 50,000 matches powered jet truck. So if I was to come here to the link up here and copy that link, when I paste that link in the search, I know this sounds kind of counterproductive to put a link in a search, but it finds that exact video. So that way you don't have to look at these little thumbnails and be like, is it this match video or is it this match video? If you take the link, it'll match the exact video that you're looking for.
And you can't ever upload anything except YouTube, right?
For now. Remember on Monday's work webinar, I showed you that request a feature?
Oh, right.
You can put that into Smart. So Ishmael, if you click on the 3 lines and click request a feature, this brings you to Smart's voting platform. So basically anyone can submit an idea to Smart, and then anyone can vote on ideas that other teachers or other users have posted. And when Smart is getting ready to, when their engineers are trying to make Smart Learning Suite better for the user, this is where they start. And they look, so like right now I have it sorted by hot ideas. So they would probably sort by top. And they're going to notice like, hey, 202 teachers really want folders to organize their notebooks. That's something that Smart's going to work on before they work on whatever has like 1 vote.
Okay.
So they really do, and you'll notice like here, multiple classes, and somebody from Smart actually said, this is planned. We're working on it now. So that's why that request a feature. As teachers, you know the expression, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Smart wants to make their product the best thing that the users want, but they can't do that if they don't know what the users want. So like when they're in their office and they're sitting at their computers to code and program and design, they're basically grasping at straws unless somebody says, hey, I wish that I could do this with my software. And then Smart goes, hey, great idea. Let's program it. So that's the logic behind that requesting yeah. All right.
Okay.
So echoing on somebody's microphone.
That's me. Me too.
Okay. If you want to, I'm going to mute you, but if you have questions, feel free to come off of mute. All right. So when we're talking about ELA and social studies, a lot of the things that are really helpful in Smart Learning Suite Online, compared to other presentation softwares, is the ability to use graphic organizers, that converting your static content to interactive content, and the ability to write and mark up the SLSO. So we're going to look at some of these interactive tools, and we're going to see how they really work. So this first one right here was just that sample. So we kind of talked about the YouTube video already, but I start with what do you know about the World Trade Center in New York City? This makes me feel old every time I hear this lately, because I was in high school in New York on 9/11. I remember walking out of my classroom and seeing smoke.
Wow.
And my students weren't even born yet. And that really just kind of hits, because it's like, how can I really explain the vision of smoke coming? And I lived on Long Island. I was 30 minutes away from Manhattan and I could still see the smoke. But how can I explain that to an 11-year-old who's never experienced it? And it's one of those things. And I'm sure other generations, like I wasn't alive during the Challenger explosion. I wasn't alive when MLK was shot. I wasn't alive when JFK was shot.
I was.
But my parents and my grandparents, I heard the story. So how do we relate this to them? And this is a great little introduction. And then we have a video that was a documentary that goes into students talking about it. So now again, because this is a history class demonstration, we have an article. So the video and the question are the hook. And then we have this article, and we could be talking to the students in real time. And while I'm talking to the students, I could start highlighting stuff. Let's see, what's something. So I could start highlighting in real time. I could circle, I could change the color because that yellow might not show that great when we're screen sharing. And we could write, highlight, all of this different stuff that you couldn't do on a PowerPoint. So right there, you're now making your presentation interactive, because if you're in front of your class at your board while you were talking to them, you would be standing at the board highlighting and showing and talking, or they might have a copy of the article in front of them on paper, and you're modeling how to highlight those important facts on your board, but now you can do it on your computer as well. So you're screen sharing and your students are able to see. If your students are logged in, as I clicked the wrong menu, if your students are logged in, as you can see, Pat is currently logged in to pretend to be a student. As I was highlighting stuff, Pat would see it on her computer, even if she's not watching the Google Meet screen. So if Pat was on her phone looking at the presentation, she could see me highlighting in real time. So that's one of the other benefits of Smart Learning Suite Online is it's giving you multiple platforms where you're sharing in real time.
You're not actually running this. Oh, okay. I was going to say because my screen was just a blank page.
Oh, no, I had it set to teacher paste. So you didn't see it in real time on your fake student?
No.
Huh. That's
I'll refresh.
interesting because you should have. All right, so the next thing that we have in the sample is a response. And response it's one of my favorite tools of Smart Learning Suite because it gives you real-time data about your students. The only negative about response is it must be simultaneous. Your students and you have to be logged in synchronously in order for them to do response. Some of the other activities I'm going to show you will allow asynchronous learning. So your students can log in whatever time they want, and you as the teacher can still see information. So again, Pat is my only sample student, and I'm not going to expect her to take this fake quiz. But if I click show questions, it'll show you that it's saying, like, why does the author include a discussion of happy events in the first paragraph? And it goes on, there's 3 sample questions. When I end the activity, so when my students are done and I click end, right here is the reason why I love response. And that's because I could export all the answers and all my students' responses into an Excel spreadsheet. It will actually conditionally format the spreadsheet so I could see what students got questions right, what students got them wrong. Green is right, red is wrong. And it allows me to adapt my lesson quickly. So if I see, hey, all these students just got this wrong, let's go back to the article and let's discuss what exactly we were looking for. So the question was asking about why paragraph 1 starts with happy stuff. So I can come in here with a pen and we could talk about everyone remembers those happy memories. But why was September 11th different? And I right there had those results from the response to quickly adapt my lesson to meet my students' needs. And that is a great key, especially because when you're in class, you can kind of see that blank look on your students' faces when stuff's going over their head. But when you're on a Google Meet call or a Zoom call or anything like that, right now, none of us have our cameras on. So if these were your students, would you be able to tell if your students were just zoned out and confused, or would you be able to tell that they're getting the material and you can move on?
Nope.
All right, so we also talked about graphic organizers, and this right here is a sample of Cornell Notes. If you haven't used Cornell Notes before, it is one of those methods. I believe the reason it's called Cornell is because it originated at Cornell University. And it's just a way to organize notes that helps students kind of focus in on what they're doing. If you're like me, when I was in high school, my notebooks were so I don't even know. When I look back at them, I'm like, how did I ever study from this? Because, I had doodles in the corners and I had little pictures here and then I had notes here and I was like drawing pictures around the notes and I was circling my notes and it made no sense. So Cornell Notes are just a way to help students focus in and make sure their notes are making sense to them. And that's the nice thing about this graphic organizer. Now, if I right now, it's set to just having me as the teacher write on it. But if this was for my students, I can come up here. I can change this. I'm going to change it into a collaborative space for now. And when I change it into collaborative, I'm going to put you both on one team. And now myself and my students can all be writing on this together. So Pat or Ishmael, if one of you want to write something, we could all be writing in real time. So I could come up here and I could put that the topic is 9/11. And while I'm writing that, Pat might put something in the question section. You could just put a scribble or something. You don't have to actually write a question. But the students can be filling in questions. We could, as a class, be filling in the notes. I could maybe say, hey, Pat, while you're taking notes, Ishmael, why don't you write a 1-sentence summary? And it allows us to all collaborate, all work. And now it's making the student an active member of the learning rather than a passive observer. So it adds that interactiveness and it helps the students connect more. It's the same reason when we were in elementary school, they made us write our multiplication facts over 20 times. It's because repetitiveness and participation are what's going to help you get the facts from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. If I'm just talking to you, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. If you are actively involved in the learning, you're going to have a better memory of that learning experience. Now, Ishmael, if you notice, when Pat wrote that 24/7 news coverage, she typed it. If you come over here to the side menu, you'll notice that the student has an option for a pen, an eraser, inserting an image, but then they also have a letter A, and that letter A is going to be your text box. Now, just to show you, when I click on my pointer finger, if I click on that 24/7 news and I pull down the option, I could see which student typed it. So if you are doing a collaborative activity, you can see which student's adding what. So that way you don't have any student claiming, I was working, I swear. If their name's not listed on any of those things, then they did not do any work. And that is a great tool that Smart Learning Suite does give you. You can see who did what.
So, Corey, can I ask,
Yes.
when the class is over and you go back and
Mhm.
do this and look at what people wrote, if the class
Yes.
isn't live anymore, will you still get that drop down to see?
I believe so. So if you remember from our other discussions, Pat, I do know that if they're logged in as a guest, the teacher will still be able to go back and see it, but the kid would not be able to go back.
Right.
So what happens is and this also goes for even if you today had clicked login with Google, because I am on a visualsound.com account and you are on whatever account you're on,
Right.
you are still technically a guest in my class. So you would not be able to come back later and see what you typed into my slides.
Okay. I was just wondering, like, after the students left the class and there was no color or icon associated with their name, when you clicked on that, would you still be able to say, okay, Jim did this and Karen?
Well, I'll tell you what, Pat, why don't you leave the virtual class and I'll reload it and we'll see.
Okay.
We'll test it right now with yours.
Okay, I left.
All right, so I'm going to refresh because I saw the number 2 become a 1. See, and this is the purpose of these webinars, Pat. It's to help you guys. So I'm doing whatever you need, especially because with only 2 people in the webinar, you guys are getting a personalized. So I click the student progress. It's going to start loading. All right. It still shows that Pat added it.
Oh, okay, good.
There we go.
That's helpful.
See, and I learned something new too. So this is why it's good to ask these questions.
Great.
And again, that feature only came out during the COVID shutdowns. That was a brand new feature. So until I started planning out these webinars for all of you, I hadn't even seen that feature because I hadn't had a reason to look into it. So the next couple of slides are just some sample activities. So the flip out, and the reason I want to show you this flip out is because this is just a different way to do something you've always done. And that is a choice board. So as you can see, when we talk about the choice boards, typically a choice board kind of looks like a tic-tac-toe menu or a list of choose 3 of the 5 projects. But with this, it just kind of makes it a little more fun for the kids to look into. So They're all writing prompts, and they just flip the cards over. And it says something like, create a new title for the text that we using clues from today's reading. Or find one word from today's text, and I didn't even notice a typo in there, so I could fix that in a moment. Find one word from today's text that was new to you and explain what it means. Which character did something you didn't expect? Explain your reasoning. Obviously, these don't all relate to that 9/11 article. They're just samples of what you can do. And these flip cards are traditionally just, kind of like your old-fashioned index card. They're used so that the student can come in here, especially if you're doing asynchronous, and they can kind of just play with the flip cards, but we gave them more of a purpose. And then the other one is a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and this is just a shout out. Oh no, sorry, this is a handout. And so each student would get this blank slide, and if you're looking at your student view right now, it just says start. Once you click start, it would load for you. And as the teacher, I would see when you start, your name will pop up here so that I can look at what you're doing. So Pat clicks start. And now if I log on to Pat's, I would see if she did something. If I want to go back to my blank copy as the teacher to have it displayed, I can do that as well. So there's just a lot of different options. The biggest thing with the Smart Learning Suite Online is using those interactive features to enhance your lessons. Again, you can put up a PowerPoint and just talk over these blank slides. But if your students are actively doing things, it's going to really help them to really just help them learn the material and feel engaged and feel like they're part of the learning rather than just a bystander.
Yeah, that never loaded for me.
I'm not sure why my sample one wasn't loading either, so I'm not positive what's going on with it.
Can I just ask you about the previous one where you had the flip cards?
Yeah.
If you said that,
So maybe I think that loading is just part of I don't know what's going on, but yes, let's go back to the flip cards for you.
So would you set that as a handout activity?
So the flip cards wouldn't necessarily be a handout because there's nothing to grade. So remember we talked about the power of a blank page? I just did a shout out instead of a blank page, didn't I? No, I did a blank page. All right, so the power of a blank page. What I would say, and I didn't do it in my sample, which is why I just did it, but I would say right after the flip out, I would put a blank page and I would turn it into the individual handout so that students would just go to the next page to answer whatever choice they made. And then I can come back here to the flip out.
So there's no way you could tell what they chose, or would you see that had been flipped over?
You wouldn't see what would have been flipped. So I would probably the same way that I created the Cornell notes and the graphic organizers prior to making it an activity, I would probably make a blank page that says, which card did you choose? And answer the question. Something like that. So that way, when my students get to that next blank page, they would know to let me know which question they chose and answer it. Does that make sense, Pat?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were supposed to write something on that, but since it's an activity,
yeah, they can't write on the activity.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey, just one quick question.
Yeah.
Every time you switch activities, we have to click start. Can we turn that off, or does that have to be on? Like
that is just the nature of the beast.
Okay.
So if you notice, like I'm gonna go back. Do I have any set up? All right, so like when I go to response, because that was one that requires students, and then I'm gonna reset it because I want it to be from the beginning. So if you look at your screen right now, it should say waiting for teacher to start. correct?
Right. Your teacher isn't running this.
Yes.
Okay, so
Right.
when it is a collaborative activity or one that has to be synchronous, that's the message you'll see on the slide when you go to that slide. If it is a handout or a game, you will have the start button. And that is, so now that I hit start, now you would see your quiz for the responses. And the reason that is if I come over here and change my lesson pacing from teacher to student, now you can actually share this to your students on your Google Classroom or your Schoology or whatever platform you use. And the students can go in anytime they want to do the work. Again, responses will not work if it's not in real time with the teacher, and the collaborative spaces will not work. Handouts will work. The games will work, but the teacher doesn't see the students' answers to the games. So it's kind of just like more, those type of activities are more for the students to have self-assessment or for the students to review and study. If the teacher wants to see the students' progress and respond and work, it has to either be a handout or a collaborative space. And again, only the handouts will work asynchronously. So I'm going to hit end. This is basically open question time for both of you. I mean, I've gone through the presentation. We do have a couple more samples of some graphic organizers. I switched it to student paced if you wanted to go through those graphic organizers yourself. These are not currently set to handouts. So right now, you as the student would just be looking at these graphic organizers passively. If I wanted my students to write on it, all I would do again is go up to the people and click individual handout. And now every student can make themselves a copy and write on it. And I hear Pat clicking through.
Oh, yeah. I was just looking at the rest of the slides.
That's why on the tutorial video I made separately from these live webinars, I put background music. It was to hide the mouse clicks because they were, for some reason, really loud.
Oh, wait, I didn't see those slides.
They should be underneath my resource page.
Oh.
So if you keep scrolling down past the resources and the questions.
Oh, there they are.
I actually thought I put the other website address there, but it's not there.
And
Now
resources for okay.
Yes.
No, I was just going to ask you, where could we find? Is it this? What is it? The smart learning community? Is that where we will go to find like curriculum resources for?
So
like
you can go to
kindergarten?
Smart Exchange. That is one. I'm going to put some links in the chat for you so you can just click them. This bit.ly here, the visual sound 033. This one was actually created for us by someone from Smart. We told him we were doing these webinars and he put together a great list of resources to help save me some time so that I could better assist you guys. And also because, like I said, there are some features that were just coming out. So he made that resource so that I knew the features that came out within the last few weeks so that I could better assist you. The other bit.ly that I'm going to share with you is an earlier link that I created. So I've been hosting these free webinars for a couple of weeks now. I started when all the COVID-19 shutdowns began. So that Visual Sound 031 link, that one is going to be all the resources of every webinar. It also includes the schedule for upcoming webinars. Today's is actually the last currently scheduled, but we are going to be hosting more throughout the summer. So you will have the schedule is posted on that website. YouTube videos of all the previous webinars is posted on that website, along with resources for all the different tools. So we did a couple of Smart Learning Suite online webinars. We've also done some Google webinars, Microsoft webinars. We did Zoom. So everything, all the resources are on the 031 bit.ly. so that you can go look at it at your own time, have those resources available. I am also a resource. If you need me, I am here for you.